Oh! Hi folks, today I've got a model that's actually a little bit special to me. So a few years ago I went to a really neat one-off event called Round Top, or I think it was Warbirds over Round Top, somewhere deep in the heart of Texas, as they say. And you know the old song, if it wasn't for bad luck I'd have no luck at all. Well, that didn't apply that day because I won this at that event. This was a giant RC model from, donated actually from a local company called Warbird Models. They're actually only a few towns away from me. And they donated this as a raffle prize there. And they had a special way of entering a raffle, which it was very easy to do, and so even I did it. And I ended up winning this at the end of the event. I couldn't believe it. Now this is of course the CY Models F8 Bearcat. Now Bearcats were technically a World War II design, and I understand there was actually one squadron of them on an aircraft carrier on the way to fight the war in the Pacific against the Japanese when the war ended and the Japanese surrendered. So it never entered battle in World War II, but it was actually quite common in Korea War. And you can see these, for example, I think in a movie Bridges of Tokiri may have had some, and also more recently the film Devotion, which has some beautiful flying scenes in the beginning of them flying Bearcats. So now I've had a little electric Bearcat I did a review on some years ago that was pretty neat. But to have a big, I think this is 94-inch span. This is a big mother, and I've got an engine for it too, which I'll talk about later. And so this is really neat, and I thought, wow, let me do a video of this as well. This is sort of my own personal pet project, and I am really looking forward to flying it and getting it in the air. So without any further delay, let's get her done. All right, before I get started, I just want to take a quick look at the kit contents. And to be honest, there's not much there. You got the pair of wings and a pair of the horizontal stab, a little sliver of a rudder. It's funny, the Bearcat's rudder is kind of funny. And the cowl and a few niblets that I've already taken out and stuck in various places. So the first things I noticed is the finish. It's got a matte blue finish, which generally speaking is I quite like to have a matte finish. Although I'm a little perplexed in that this paint scheme seems to be reminiscent of something like the Blue Angels, which I believe the Bearcat was the first aircraft to fly to Blue Angels. And if I recall, aren't those planes usually glossy color? So it's interesting that it's got a flat finish, but it's, I think in this rare case it should be glossy. But that's not a big deal, you can always spray a gloss coat over it. Second thing is the wings are wood and fully sheeted. Nice. Very, very nice and durable. And same thing with the tail, fully sheeted wings. We've got the ailerons here, and the flaps, which are actually offset hinged here. Now the fuselage itself is actually fiberglass with a few little panel details. You see some rivet details. You can see some of the weave here in the cockpit. It's kind of interesting. So the cockpit comes off, there's little screws that hold it on, so forth. A little more rivet detail, and all the livery is pre-applied from the factory. Let's see, some sort of, I'm not sure if this is painted or decal. Interesting. It actually looks like it's maybe painted. Here, yeah, it's actually painted. Speaking of fiberglass, we've got a fiberglass cowl here as well. More details. And looks like a pretty nice weave in here. Actually, for what it is, it's fairly large, but it actually doesn't weigh that much. It's pretty nice, pretty decent. And what's really great is with this kit, I believe, comes standard with the retract. And it's funny, is the actual instruction manual is this, and it's only a few pages. It's really not much to put this thing together. And what it looks like. So it looks like it should be a fairly quick build. So I am gonna, and here you go. Okay, let's never use that microphone again. Anyways, my first steps were to glue the aileron pin hinges with epoxy. Be sure to grease those joints. Then on to installing the flap servos. And flap control horns. Wait, what?
Well, I came across my first minor nitpick. So the fiberglass horns don't quite fit all the way down. If you look closely, you can see there's a bit of a gap right here where it looks like they really should fit flush. I can't push them down any further because it's actually starting to come out the other side of the covering. So it's an easy fix. It's a just minor bit of annoyance. In fact, they're all like that. Even on the ailerons, they don't quite fit all the way in as well. So they stop. I really would like to. I mean, that just looks clunky. And I double checked. They're all exactly the same. Oh, the control horns are exactly the same. Oops, I just dropped something. So, it's an easy fix. What I'm going to have to do is just basically trim it.
Yeah, take that. I love it when a plan comes together. Okay, now for the pilot holes for the servo plate screws. Now to do the control horns. Installing the landing gear will take a few steps. I test fit the landing gear before drilling the screw holes. Everything was free and clear. Hidden under the horizontal stab covering are the bolt holes.
Alright, so there's a little hole here. Open up, it's got some covering over it. Open it up just a little bit. Alright, nice and clean. Goes right through.
You can glue the stabilizer on, but I prefer to screw it on, which didn't go quite as planned.
Slide it on to the spar here. And get in, come on. There we go. And it just screws in. Get in there without cross-threading it. Something new, pretty short with a blind nut. Well, it did go through, but it didn't stop. It's supposed to screw. It's supposed to screw all the way through the basically the spar on the top and the bottom with a lock nut, but the holes were not drilled on here. So no holes were drilled, so I'm going to have to drill my own holes, which is fine. It's just minor inconvenience. Keep up. I'm not sure if it's missing the screws or ones that are too short. This is much too short to screw through. So fortunately I have a whole sort of treasure chest of military Metric screws, yes. So I have a whole cache of metric screws. So I'm going to pull some out of my my storage bin and see how this works. It's nice because it's not quite big enough to slip through. Oh, look at that. I think I'll like that. And we'll just throw a nylon lock nut. Oh, probably should get a washer. You want a washer somewhere? There we go. Well, I actually kind of like that I can unbolt and pull the tail off if I ever need to for storage or shipping or transportation out to the field or something like that. Should be a kind of quick and easy thing. Well, no, you're going to have to pull the clevises off. So it's probably not going to be all that practical in a sense, but it may come in handy on the rare occasions where I need to fit it into a tight space. So that's pretty neat, and that was quick and easy to do. Well, I got the sliver of a rudder, and I'm going to have to install part of this the pull mechanism. It says to put it on the bottom. Right here. You see, put in the bottom, the hole, that kind of stuff. See? But there's no hole that I can see. No. So I guess I'm going to have to make it myself. Slow, use my Mark 1 eyeball. Straight. Use a drill slightly smaller than I should, so should be able to, yeah, look at that. Gets in there quite nicely. Epoxy it in and be done with it. There we go. Yep, that'll work. I can get this tail wheel mechanism. This is going to be fun. This is going to be fun. Here we go. I love this little drill. Neat little guy, fits in the tight spaces. Chucks down to really teeny tiny drill bits. Yeah, good stuff.
With that done, it was time to assemble the carbon control rods using JB Weld to glue on the metal threaded rods on just one end at first. You'll need to cut out the pushrod exit slots in the fuselage, so I aligned the angles using masking tape. Hey, my calibrated eyeball was pretty close and just needed a little lengthening of the slot. Test fitting the threaded rod on the other end showed the carbon rod is a bit long, which is easily rectified. Rudder uses a pull cable, so that needs to be assembled.
Yeah, alright, so I've now gotten the tail control surfaces all wired up. I've got the control rods for the elevator here and the pull system for the rudder and the tail wheel. So that took a bit to get all that in. It wasn't hard, just a little bit tedious, but pretty happy with it. I have to do some final tweaking and adjustments of stuff, but at least I can pretty much call most of the tail done. I still have to add the little tail cone to it and some minor little doodads. But hey, that's major progress. So I think I can start moving on to the front of this baby and leave the rear alone. Famous last words, huh?
All right, now we're getting to the good stuff. And this is something I'm really excited about is the engine. And the baby I'm going to use, Saito. Not just a Saito. This Saito, oh yeah, baby. FG-90 3-cylinder 4-stroke gasoline engine. I came across this. This is actually something I picked up on a second-hand market. I believe it's used, but I think it's been used very little. I can see very little usage on it. And it is just sweet. And the best thing is it fits in the cowl. No problem at all, with room to spare, it looks like. So it looks like I don't have to hack up the cowl. It's got room for the engine and the wiring for the spark plugs, it looks like. And this should be sweet. It should be sweet sounding. 90 cubic centimeters should be plenty of power for this plane. I believe they call for, 50 cc on this thing for regular 2-stroke. 4-strokes being a little weaker. This is not as strong as a 92-stroke, but it should have a really awesome sound, good power. I'll probably need the nose weight anyways. It's going to be interesting hooking this up. This carburetor really sticks out the back here. I may have to open up the firewall for the carburetor to make sure everything lines up, but I've never had a multi-cylinder engine before. Well, no, a 3-cylinder. I've had a 2-cylinder in my shock cub, but never had a 3-cylinder engine, and certainly not a multi-cylinder 4-stroke gasoline engine. So this is all kinds of good stuff combined into one really snazzy package that actually looks like a real radio. So let's see how I can get this thing mounted up to this. Yeah, baby. Yeah, you're going to sit right there and like it. The engine comes with a mounting template. Which I used to make a plywood fixture to mount to the firewall. I did this because the firewall has some right thrust in it, and I'll need the engine to be mounted slightly off center. One, two, three blocks make nice squares for gluing the fake motor shaft.
So to explain the whole purpose of doing this is I noticed that the firewall has a little bit of down thrust and right thrust built into it. And that's actually good because you normally want a little bit of down and a little right thrust so you don't have thrust pitch coupling as you change the throttle and you're flying. However, that means that if I mounted the motor exactly in the center, it may not be exactly in the center of the cowl. So what I wanted to do is, of course, put the cowl on and make this little contraption so that I could stick it in here and simulate where the output shaft of the engine will be. So I can mark it. I'll use some tape. I'll tape it in there and mark it. I got a piece of tape right here. So what I'll do is I will take a few minutes to move it around and I'll double check the measurements around the cowl so that when I do bolt the engine on, it'll be pretty much in the dead center.
I could have also tack glued the alignment tool to the firewall, but tape worked just fine.
Check that out. You know, use a pen.
Once aligned, I marked to drill holes.
Alright, so the holes lined up, that's a good start. Screws are a little bit too short, they're just barely enough to put the nuts on, but not fully, so I'll probably get some longer screws. But what I really need to do is see how well this lines up. Everything should go on so it fits over the engine quite nicely. And there. But I think that lines up pretty good. There we go. You can barely see it. We are very much in the ballpark with that. But look at that, man. Multi-cylinder. Doesn't that look cool? That looks absolutely mean. I like that. Multi-cylinder, even the heat sinks make a cool effect. Alright, so I think I will call that a success. Now just need to fine tune the mounting. I'm going to find some slightly longer, in fact I have some longer screws right here. I'll try these. And the next step is to hook up the throttle and choke. Still haven't quite figured out where that choke is. It's got a weird choke on this thing. And that's the normal stuff. Hook up the throttle servo. I think there's a rod for that. Get some longer screws. Make sure this is bolted in well. I think that'll work just fine. And that is cool. I just can't wait to get this thing fired up. Can barely turn here. It's gonna sound so cool. And alright, let's get to work on that.
The Kilo exhaust ring is supposed to improve the sound and bolts on pretty easily. Then to hook up the ignition module. Okay, so I did this one, so I need to do, this is number something or another. Number 1. I think it's number 1. They're actually labeled the cylinder somewhere. I saw it earlier, I think. So on the bottom of basically the exhaust port, so the ring collects everything, it pops out the bottom, and so what's happening is the cowl is not fitting completely over. It's hitting it. So I had to decide how much of the cowl do I cut away, or do I just trim? I should be able to trim the ring, the actual part of this ring, the exhaust port of the ring, without any problem, either the bandsaw or a Dremel tool. Probably what I'll do is I'll just cut it down and then cut a small slot in the cowl to fit over it, so it's not very obtrusive. I think what they do is they just give you a nice long piece and then you cut it down to size as you need it. But I'll double check. It shouldn't affect anything else. So that needs to be done. I decided mucking with the cowl could wait. I wanted to check something on the engine first. It starts with removing the valve covers and the spark plugs. As this is a used engine, I decided to double check the gaps on all the rockers. It's pretty easy to do with the included feelers. Just make sure the piston is at the top position and adjust the gap by adjusting the jam nut. With that done, it was finally ready to light the fire on this baby. However, I found it wasn't a one-man job. Yeah, that just isn't going to work. So I enlisted my friend Raymond to hold the beast while I try again. Yeah, to my delight, she cranked right up. Seemed pretty well tuned in and sounded great.
That sounds so good. It is, but it's a little rough to be hard. You got to listen to that.
Out of curiosity, I put a tachometer on it, but since I had a slightly smaller prop than was recommended, I hit the RPM limit at only about 2/3 throttle. No matter, I was just happy she was finally running. All right, I'm as happy as a clam. It started right up. I was surprised how quickly it started up and ran pretty good. Now, I think it's a bit off on some of the tuning. I think the low end is maybe a touch rich, but I'll have to check that out. Also, the prop I used is a bit small in pitch for what it needed. It was in danger of over revving, which is why I was tacking it. But I'm happy it runs. I've just got one more thing to do, and that is add this little guy. This is a replacement ignition ring from CH Ignitions, and it's supposed to kind of smooth out the low end. I did notice the low end was seen to run a little rough, and I guess by changing somewhat the replacement of the magnets here for the ignition pickup, that they adjust the timing a little bit to run it, make it run a lot smoother. Everybody I've talked to who run these engines says, "You must get this or be gone." So I have one, and I'm going to see about putting this on and replacing the old one, and now I have a metric and I can compare the two since it's on video. So anyways, happy? Let's get going. The first step is locate the set screw on the ring and use an Allen wrench to remove it. It has a very interesting shape to it. The next step required the use of a gear puller like this. It popped loose a couple times, but eventually I got it to hold long enough to pull the ring off. Comparing the old to the new, there is a very obvious difference in magnet spacing and grip pattern. Next is to punch out the center spacer. And slip it into the new part. Make sure to align it with the holding pin. Looks like my removal tool marred the edges slightly, so some light filing was needed. Much better. Okay, now the whole assembly can be reinstalled and tightened. With that done, I finally decided to trim down the exhaust extension. Still a little tight, but that's okay. I'll just cut an opening in a cowl for it. Like a glove. Now to drill the holes for mounting screws. I have an oddly shaped switch unit to mount up, so I made a cutting template out of card stock. And trace it over the fuselage for cutting. Fits like a glove. I mounted it inverted because here in America, up is on and down is off. Canopy is held on with small self-tapping screws. A quick retest of the retracts. Then to install the gear doors. A quick check of the balance showed it's actually nose heavy. Well, that's a surprise. Since I knew the engine ran, I tried hand cranking it. Which didn't work. So I got another helper. There we go. And yes, the new timing ring did make a difference in sound. It seemed to have a more consistent note. The last couple things was to add a remote kill switch. And cooling baffles. These baffles improve engine cooling by concentrating airflow around the cylinders, but take a bit of engineering to install. It's just 3 main pieces, but getting them to stay in place while test fitting proved a bit troublesome. But then I had an idea. Poster putty to the rescue. This is the stuff used to hang posters on the wall without damage. A blob of it is used to hold the baffle in place. Well, okay, several blobs, but you get the point. And mark the edges for gluing. After gluing in the brackets, of course. Baffles are epoxy to the cowling, aligning with the markings. It fit pretty good. Just needed some minor trimming. Oh, and speaking of cooling, at this point I realized I needed to make a much larger opening for cooling air to exit. So, Jumbo Cutter to the rescue! Though a little bit of me died inside, hacking up the cowl. Fake inlets are also added to the wing root leading edges with canopy glue. So back to the balance issue. Using the Legend Hobby CG or balance stand, you can see it is way nose heavy. So for the first time in my life, I needed to add tail weight, about a pound of it. Fortunately, there is a nice hidden spot for it. For the maiden flight, I decided I needed an audience. So I was off to the famous bomber field with their annual warbird gathering. This is a fantastic event for giant scale warbirds of all types. But especially for bombers. At one point, the sky was full of them. If you want to see more, check out my video report on the event. Anyways, with just a hit of trepidity, it was finally time to see if all my blood and sweat would take to the skies. With a little ground help from Jay Kujan from Jason's RC Garage channel, it was time to light the fires. With Jay taking some beauty shots and the engine ticking over like a clock, I moved into position to join the loose gaggle of models in the air.
Take it off!
I left the cowl off for the first flight to ensure good cooling and to allow easy engine adjustments.
Actually, the first time I've taxied it. Alright, CY model Bearcat. First flight. The Saito 90 radio. It's ticking like a clock. We get that lined up. All right, take it off. Well, I'm up. Fast. Throttle back.
She was up quick and bucking like a wild horse.
It's a little touchy on the elevator. I'm gonna go low rate on the elevator. That's better. Throttle back a little bit. It's flying, but wow. The elevator is touchy. Sounds cool though. Take a bow. And it's scooting along. Let me throttle back here. I think I'm gonna go low rates on the ailerons too. This is per the manual setup and it's still, there we go. Get the trims. It actually cruises quite nice at low throttle. Look at that aileron trim. Yeah, that elevator's touchy. Yeah, probably put a little too much weight in the tail.
Despite the touchiness, I felt confident flying it.
I gotta roll it. Yeah, that's the low rates. It might be fine if I just tune down, put some expo, and cut the rates down on the elevator. Half throttle is all it needs.
But I do look forward to some speed tests once the cowl is on.
I wanted to do a low pass with it.
One thing flying at a big event like this is waiting your turn to do certain things.
Low-ish pass. It's flying pretty good, other than the elevator's really touchy. So I'm gonna
Some slow speed tests were next on the menu.
also hit the flaps down. Doesn't seem to do anything drastic. There's partial flaps.
A really well-behaved model.
I can just barely hear the engine. Try to pull a loop. Back off the throttle. Yay! Not bad. Didn't seem to want to snap out of it.
Beautiful point rolls. I think I'm going to really like this plane.
It's pretty nice. Inverted. I want to cut this one short. Landing. Gear down. Landing! This started to be interesting. One notch of flaps. Don't get too crazy with it.
It's just my first landing in front of a big crowd. No big deal.
Got a little high. Throttle. Lost the wheel.
Nice landing.
Yeah, thank you.
Well,
Perfect
you
landing.
lost the wheel.
I lost the wheel. It's always the little things. All right,
Nice
thanks.
made it, man.
Grease landing, lost the wheel.
That
Oh well.
Perfect landing if you don't lose that wheel.
Yeah, always something.
After reattaching the wayward wheel, I decided to try again. This time with the cowl. Now she looked like a proper Bearcat. So far, so good. Even the announcer noticed me.
G90 Saito radial engine, so a lot like the warbirds that were flown in World War II had multi-cylinder radials on them. This one's got 3 cylinders on it. It gives it that unique sound, so it sounds a lot more like a real warbird.
Okay, we're back with the cowl this time. Yes. Drop a little bit of flaps. All right, take it off.
Let's hope the wheel stays on this time.
All right, takeoff's already better this time. Gear up.
Fantastic performing airplane.
He's up and up with the cowl. Let's hope the radio. Oh, I forgot to plug in the landing gear. Looks like a landing gear down flight. I forgot to put the dang it. Always something. Well, I'm in the pattern. That's not gonna stop me. Do a victory roll. Yes.
HT-19 with his gears down, so
Yeah. The elevator's much nicer now.
we got the memo.
Stuck gear wasn't going to stop me from having fun.
4-point roll. Flying good. Oh, this engine sounds great. Actually, while it's quiet, I'm going to do a couple passes. Ah, yeah, baby. Give me what I need. You got it. Whoa. That was an interesting spin.
Yeah, weirdest snap roll I ever saw.
They did not like the snap roll. It did a weird thing.
Again, we're looking for some pilots that are ready to fly. We've got plenty of time left before the noon shutdown. So we got somebody who's looking to get some air time. Let's get them down here.
And then my spider sense is activated.
Oh, it's sounding funny. Want to bring her in? Landing. Landing? Yeah.
Landing.
I'm hearing a burble or something. A little high. Go around. And make it.
Sputtering.
Dead stick!
Dead.
Gonna make it. Oh! All right, I'll go get it.
The walk of shame. Yeah, I should have landed long. But the damage was very minimal. Well, I'm pretty sure the engine quit due to overheating. Hopefully nothing was damaged. Now, looking at the cowl, the opening is not quite that big, and I likely have insufficient cooling air exit area as well. So it's off to see what mods I can do to improve the airflow and see if that fixes the issue. Now, that said, this Seaway model's Bearcat flies really nice. And once the engine is worked out, I think I'll really quite like flying this plane. The Saito engine sounds and looks great, and definitely adds character to the model. I also look forward to really testing the flight envelope, so hopefully there'll be a part 2 to this video. Hi, thanks for watching. Please take a look at the video description below for special HobbyView sales and discounts. Your purchases help support this channel. Happy modeling.
Oh well.
Perfect landing if you don't lose that.
Yeah, always something.